Ultimately, the race was won by Valtteri Bottas, and let's have a look at his start. Bottas gets away really well. He's been hit and miss with his starts this year so far, and this one was definitely a hit. Picks up the slipstream from Hamilton down to turn 2 and challenges his teammate for the lead down at the first braking zone. Really love what Bottas did here. Tried to pass Lewis around the outside, full commitment, and actually almost makes it through. Almost also goes too wide and ends up in a world of runoff area troubles. But really good stuff from Bottas. Now, he actually said post-race the reason he was so late on the brakes was because he got hit by a giant bee just before the braking area and missed his braking point. Now, I've tried to find the giant bee hitting on the visor. It must have been so small and I can't see it. But either way, giant bee or not, it's a really good attack from Bottas. And if we flip back to Hamilton here at the start, you can actually see when they hit the brakes, Bottas goes quite a long way ahead and he almost makes this move stick around the outside. He's in super deep, Hamilton is stuck on the inside, but for probably another metre or so, Bottas makes this move stick around the outside on the medium tyres against Hamilton on the soft, and it would be exquisite for the driving from Valtteri Bottas. I think this year so far, he's been way too cautious on these first laps, and driving aggression like that against his teammate, even if imagine they were both on the soft tyres, he'd have even more grip to try and pull that move off. That's what I think he's been needing at races like Mugello, Silverstone and Spa, when he's had a chance to take the fight to Hamilton. Here he's taken the fight to Hamilton. He's not beaten him, he's on the medium tyres, he's gone a little bit wide, but it's a great attempt. And ultimately he still passed Max Verstappen and got track position to everyone else, and when Hamilton had his penalty, Bottas won the race. With fastest lap as well for the bonus point. It was a job well done.
Yes! Yeah! I think again it's a nice moment to thank my critics, to whom it may concern you.
Elsewhere on the first lap, there were plenty of incidents and a safety car came out. One for Lance Stroll into the wall in the racing point, tangling with Charles Leclerc. Let's have a look at this. On board with Leclerc, and he actually doesn't get a very good start at all down towards turn 2. Stroll comes flying past in the pink racing point, and then Leclerc tries to follow him up the inside, and everyone on the outside goes walkies here, and it's a great chance for Stroll and Leclerc to just sweep through. And now they've gone from being outside of the top 10 to racing for 7th place. And this is where it goes wrong for Stroll. Leclerc has a little look up the inside into turn 4 and washes wide and just snags the rear right of Lance Stroll, pitching Stroll into the wall. Looking at it from Stroll's point of view, he's had a brilliant start on a new set of medium tyres because he didn't make it through into Q3. And if I pause it there, he gives Leclerc plenty of room at the apex of turn 4, goes very wide and runs right up to the exit curb, receives a whack, and that's his day done, sadly very short. And given Perez's pace as well, I think Racing Point had a really, really good car there, and Stroll got himself into a good position. Could have been a nice haul of points. This one reminds me a lot, I have to say, of the Hamilton-Albon incident from Austria, round 1, where Hamilton was given a 5-second penalty for very similar contact, washing wide and hitting Albon, and effectively Leclerc did the same thing here. Didn't get a penalty. I think ultimately he probably got away with this one, and maybe the stewards decided that because it's first lap, the cars are all bunched up, these sort of things happen. I'm inclined to agree with them to an extent, and when you look actually at Leclerc's onboard, look how close he is to the back of Sergio Perez into turn 4. When the cars are all so close, these fine margins become even finer, and Leclerc just picks up a bit of dirty air from being pretty much one car length back from Sergio Perez. And that's just what washes him slightly wide into Stroll. He picks up a bit of throttle, which certainly doesn't help his cause either. He got away with it, and he had a nice drive then to the flag and finished 6th. So that was Stroll out of the race, but there was actually a bigger crash back at turn 2 where all those cars went wide. One of them was Carlos Sainz, and he was the big loser, the one in the wall at turn 2 in a very unconventional manner. Let's have a look on board with him at the start. You can see everyone on the inside had poor starts here. Verstappen lost 2 places in fact, from 2nd on the grid. Perez has gone nowhere from 4th, and Carlos Sainz also doesn't get a great getaway from 6th. The clean side of the grid clearly much better, and the Renault's blasting past from 5th and 7th on the grid. His teammate comes through as well, and actually Sainz almost hits Norris down towards turn 1. There's cars all around him, and he brakes quite late with Lance Stroll on his inside. Turns in, Sainz, and just runs a little bit deep. He's also still got Lance Stroll just on his inside, so even if he could make the corner, he couldn't because he's got a car right there. But he can't, and he goes wide. And now if I pause it here, look at Max Verstappen ahead. Also wide, also had a Renault on his inside. and Verstappen's gone straight through the runoff. Now you can see the arrows where you need to go. Drivers must go between the polystyrene blocks here. Sainz knows that and he just turns. And this one is a bit of a rookie error really from Carlos Sainz. He just drills into the wall with far too much speed.
I'm sorry guys, I'm really sorry.
He's probably used to driving on the track where there's grip. They've been driving around there all weekend. Suddenly you're heading towards the polystyrene blocks. There's no rubber down there. It's actually a tighter corner than you would have thought, particularly when you're coming at it from Carlos Sainz's angle, and that's the crucial point here. Looking at it from the outside, we can see the difference between he and Verstappen is quite big going through here. Verstappen goes off the road there. If I pause it, you can see he's just right on the cusp of the AstroTurf. He's decided quite early on that he's gone in a bit hot and he's going to straight line this corner. Because he's gone off much earlier, he's got a much straighter run through those polystyrene blocks. He can keep it pretty quick. He manages it very finely between there, and he doesn't really lose a place. He's already going to lose the place to Ricciardo, and he comes back on behind Ricciardo and then passes him at the next corner. Whereas if I let this run through, Sainz tries even harder to keep it on the road at turn 2 and then goes off a couple of car lengths later. That means when he turns left, he's on a much harder angle to get through the polystyrene blocks than Verstappen. He's seen Verstappen bomb it through those blocks and he thinks he can do the same, but simply he's coming from a harder angle and he's got to slow the car down more. He doesn't, and he has a big crash. It reminded me a bit of this old one from GP2. The way the start is here is really tricky, and drivers can lose out a lot of time by going around these polystyrene blocks. This one back in 2015, we haven't had a lot of years of Sochi, but we've had a lot of crashes through the start here. And this one was Artem Markelov, local driver, and he does the same thing as Sainz, basically. He goes in too hot, he runs wide, and heading for the runoff, the guy in front just makes it through. Markelov overcooks it and snags the wall and ends up in the barriers. The blocks are there, number one, to stop drivers going off track and getting an advantage, but number two, so they can rejoin safely into turn 3, which is a flat out corner. Smashing your car against the wall and rejoining in the middle of a pack with 2 or 3 wheels on your car is certainly not rejoining safely. In fact, it's one of the more dangerous things you can do, so I think potentially they need looking at. Also, if we look back at the start for Sainz, you can see from the helicopter shot here, he goes wide, but look ahead. Sergio Perez is wide, manages to carry on. Pierre Gasly is wide, manages to carry on. Lando Norris is wide, manages to carry on. None of them did the correct thing here and went through the polystyrene runoff areas. Sainz was the only one that tried to follow the rules and ultimately was overzealous in doing so. The others didn't get a penalty. I assume the FIA decided there was enough of a kerfuffly scuffle on the first lap that they didn't want to penalise 3 other drivers. If we switch back to Carlos Sainz's onboard, you can see why he was in a hurry as well. Goes in deep, goes off. Again, you can see the angle he's coming on at. Whacks the wall, but if I pause it as he whacks the wall, you can already see Perez, who was just ahead of him, is already going into turn 3. He's already lost a load of time, Sainz. Even if he managed to get through there normally without hitting the wall, he would have had to slow down a little bit more. He would have rejoined miles back. So basically, putting the bollards there is just too punishing for a driver that's missed staying on the track by inches, really. Sainz would have gone from a top 6, 7 position to way outside the top 10 with that, which feels a little bit harsh as well, particularly when other drivers didn't follow the rules there.